Hey everybody, welcome back to Throttle Grotto, the Z32 project, and the failed clutch. When I got this car, I drove it around the block once, and the clutch completely failed in the driveway at the place I was buying it from. So that was fun. So that left me towing it back here, getting it up, getting the transmission out of it, and figuring out what was wrong with the clutch. Now, some of you on the Instagrams have seen pictures of this stuff. Clutch lining material, and well, that's why it failed. Actually, it's not. Rear main seal failed and caused this. So you can see the front of the clutch is in actually pretty good shape, aside from some weird wear around here. But overall, that would be drivable. That is not. Like, not only down to the rivets, but like the clutch lining in some spots was just completely gone and laying in the bell housing. So fortunately, someone spent a lot of money at some point putting this clutch in, and it was an aluminum flywheel with this replaceable surface. Now, if you haven't seen one of these, here's what they look like. So this is what we're looking at here. Like, these are all new parts here, but we have a brand new clutch disc ready to go in, a new bearing, new pilot bearing or clutch release bearing. But this is the replaceable surface. So you have an aluminum flywheel, which is actually probably a little bit lighter than stock. And then this surface, which attaches with Allen head bolts and nuts from underneath, and is replaceable. So one of the things will probably happen if you have one of these is you have to drill out all the heads of the bolts, because they don't like to come out after a long time. But you can see here the blue spots. This thing got really hot, but it didn't damage the aluminum flywheel. So I was able to find a stamping on the back of the flywheel and a part number. And I was able to contact that company. They sold me a brand new friction surface. So I got a brand new flywheel, quotes, for not a lot of money. It was like $150 for the surface. The new main seal's already in. So let's get all this stuff back in the car and see if the clutch actually works. Hopefully I've fixed it. All right, I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, but there's a little Easter egg up in this car that I found, and it's underneath the shifter, and it is Japanese newspaper. So you can see here, let me get the light a little better so it's not cast as much of a shadow. There we go. So you can actually see they put Japanese newspaper in underneath the shifter for some reason. I mean, I gotta believe when that car was new, that's what they did, you know. See if I can get a little better shot of it here. There we go. Yeah. Looks like it might have been an ad for a product or something like that. But I don't know, that's kind of a cool little Easter egg. I'm just gonna leave it in there because it's like definitely a heritage thing for the car, you know, where it came from. Clearly built in Japan. All right, we are now back at the precariously balanced transmission. One of the things about quick jacks is that it's really hard to get a transmission out from underneath the car on the transmission jack. So I had to transfer it over to this little furniture dolly to roll it around underneath the car. And then I'll move it to the transmission jack once I have it all the way up there, which will be really fun. You'll see how much fun that actually is. So next step is to throw a little bit of grease on here. Now I'm using clutch spline grease, which is made for use in bell housings. I've seen people use wheel bearing grease, etc., etc. I don't know. I bought a really expensive tube of this clutch spine grease, and this was like $60. So I'm going to get my money's worth out of it and use it for things like clutch splines and the pivot ball and the friction surface that the throwout bearing moves on. And then always remember to grease up your interfaces on this stuff, like where the fork meets the bearing housing and the springs and all that. And there's actually like a liner, or a little, I don't know if you can see it, there's a little recess in there to put some grease in, so that it all lands on there. Friends, sometimes when you do this stuff and you film it and then you feel like an idiot and you're like, maybe I shouldn't show that. This is YouTube life. Laying on the floor in my garage, putting this together. The glamour. So now this all should... There we go. So we got there, and then this just snaps over the spring like that. And there we go. That is pushed to release, or to, yeah, release the clutch, and then engage, like that should be engaged. And don't put your bearing on backwards, friends, because that would cause some savage noises and general unhappiness in your own garage. Okay, so now we get to push this beastie all the way back up underneath the car, and then figure out how to get it on the other jack by myself underneath the car. Okay, honestly, there just isn't room for all of us underneath here right now. But one thing to keep in mind is way up here at the top, that is a ground strap for the battery that goes to the block, and it is in a miserable place, both for access with a bolt and for being in the way putting the transmission back in. So keep that in mind, that you don't pinch it between the bell housing. So I'm going to push it up that way a bit, and then don't forget to install it, because then your car won't start. So yeah, I'm going to get on the struggle bus here and try to get this whole thing back up in the car, and a couple of bolts in it before I have to run across town and do some errands, and then come back and finish it this afternoon. Like the worst YouTuber on the planet, the NPC of YouTube, I basically forgot to charge my phone enough to let it run for the whole time that I was doing the job. But here's where we're at. All of the exhaust is back on, the drive line is back in, all of the braces and brackets and all that kind of stuff are back on and under the car. I don't have a big pile of parts that I forgot to install, so that's good. All of the bolts that I had extra were accounted for, that I took out of my bolt bin, so that's also a plus. So we've done new clutch, new fluid in the transmission, fresh engine oil and filter, clutch slave, clutch master, brake master, flush the brakes, One thing that got me on this, and you're all going to be, if you know these cars, you're going to be like, yeah, idiot. This bracket here, there's not a lot of information on this bracket, but it, I just forgot where it went. So it goes underneath the starter and bolts here. That's the piece that holds the starter wiring plug in place. And I just had to like look at it for like 20 minutes to figure out why I wasn't able to get it in. But the car's all back together. It shifts on the stand, so that's a plus. I won't know if the clutch actually works until I get some wheels, which hopefully is soon, because I kind of want to drive this thing and see what it's all about. One more thing I need to fix before I put it on the ground. This stuff here, somebody put like fiberglass over it and then painted the fiberglass. I'm just going to wire wheel it and throw some like undercoating on it just so it doesn't rust anymore. But I don't understand why people fix stuff that way. It's like, all right, it was a nice spring day to have the doors open and be able to work on a car. The breeze coming through the garage, so that was actually pretty nice. This job altogether wasn't that bad. About 2.5 hours to get the transmission out, including removing the exhaust, removing the driveline, and learning how the car comes apart. And then about 3 hours to put it back in, like cleaning up bolts, cleaning up parts, remembering where stuff went from like 4 or 5 days ago. All that added a little bit of time to the reassembly, but not too bad. Like less than half the time it took to swap the transaxle in the 928. Hopefully I have wheels soon, and then we can get this thing out and see what it's like and enjoy it a little bit before we start taking it apart again. One of the other reasons that I did this way is the people I got the car from want to go for one last ride in it and remember the owner of the car. So that's kind of one of those, like, it's the right thing to do. Get it all back on the road and take it for a last ride. So I am filthy. I need a shower. Like, that's not tan, that's dirt. But that's all from this episode of Throttle Grotto. Until next time, get out there and work on something.